Good morning, everyone. Today is October the 26th, and we are very pleased that you are here. Today, we are going to be revisiting a topic that we've covered a number of times about reports and report writer. And oftentimes, we forget what we've learned, and also putting together a specialized report takes some extra steps. And Charles is the expert when it comes to report writing. I say that without hesitation. And so he's going to show you how to get some of those specific pieces of information that you may need for an audit or that you might need to give to an employee or just to keep your records straight when you're doing your bookkeeping. So, Charles, with that introduction, please take it away and show us your expertise.
Thank you very much, Saundra. So when we do reporting, we're getting a lot of calls nowadays about things like workers' comp, audits, and stuff like that. But we also get like special requests for things like I need to get a report to import my 401k information from within the Dash portal to my 401k provider. And that kind of stuff is specialized, and we can do that. All we need is what we call the specifications for the report, where they tell us what columns are going to be in the reports, what kind of format they accept, whether it's CSV file or text file, things like that. So what I usually do is first thing I do is I would go to reporting, and then I do try and see if there's a report already built that can take care of your needs. I mean, because if one's already there, why build one? Why do double work? And I'll do something like, say, labor distribution, and I'll do a search, and it will be something like this labor distribution. Now, we have three different kinds of reports in here. There's reports like this one down at the bottom where it says report export, where you think, oh, great, I'll be able to export it. That is a report that we have in here because anything that we have in our production version feeds into here. But it's not one that's designed to necessarily run in Dash, or if it does, under specific circumstances, like maybe for a specific client or something like that. And you'll usually see that it won't have a description. The other reports we will see is something like this labor distribution right here, which does have a description, and it happens to have several types of edit functions, which I'll show you in a second. And then there's the third, and that's any report that has HCR after it. That stands for hard-coded report. And the hard-coded reports don't have as many edit functions, but they run faster because they don't have as many edit functions. It doesn't require as much thinking from the system. But I'm going to use labor distribution right here, the non-HCR one, for a very specific reason. So I'm going to do labor distribution here. And I'm just going to go ahead and put it to the override dates. And usually what you'll have is something like says it goes from, well, we're in October. So let's say it goes 09/01/2022, 09/01/2023. That is usually what you'll find for a workers' comp policy, not these dates necessarily, but it goes from the same date in the previous year to the same date in this year. And usually when we hear about this is after that last month of the policy period passes. I'm not going to do any filtering here. I am going to go down and I'm going to do a custom sort. I'm going to show you why on here in a second. Now, some of our clients will have 1099 employees that do need to, certain workers' comp providers do ask for that information now because of the rules and regulations regarding, who's eligible for 1099s. So they kind of want that information to see if like you're following the rules. And so I'm using the custom sort, and that activates the groups total here and the subsorts which are not totaled. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to select tax form. And then I'm going to go in here, I'm going to do by tax form subtotals. And then the second subtotal will be employee name. I always like to do by the employee name. And then when I get to the additional options right here, I'm going to put into, since I have a free a free line here, I'm going to use the tax form in this one as well, because it's always a good practice that if you're going to use a custom sort and you're going to select a particular type of item to sort by, you want to make sure that it's in the report, just as a practice, as best practice, I mean. Now I'm going to leave it as the portable document format, the PDF, because if I change it to Excel or Excel data only, it doesn't look as pretty. This particular report, the formatting on it is not necessarily designed for Excel. We have other reports that are. So for instance, an employee listing report will do great importing into Excel because it's just those columns. You might have to do some editing, but not as much as you would if it was something like this. And then for my clients that request it, I'll save the report under Save Company Reports. We've gone over that in different trainings when I train, and I'm going to call it Labor Distribution for Workers' Comp. And I'm just going to hit Save Settings. And I haven't run it yet because if I go to Save Company Reports, and we have quite a few, so I'm going to see if I can find it in here. Now, I call this something specific because there's other ones that some of my associates have put into this demonstration site. So it looks like these are alphabetical. And so it's going to be this crystal report. How do I know this? Because the other one's hard-coded report, HCR. It's going to be this crystal report. I'm going to run it right now. Well, I'm going to bring it up, and then I'm going to run it at the bottom. Click on Run Report. Now, the reason I put it in Save Reports is I'm going to go back up to here in the dates is because you can run this then with all these edits every single time. These edits are saved, and all you'd have to do is change the check dates to change it for the next period. And by the way, if you don't have any 1099 people, you can just sort this by employee name, the labor distribution, and use the hard-coded. The only reason I'm using this one is because then I have the ability to edit and sort it by tax form. I'm going to run the report. And it takes a minute to come up here, and here it is. And it says there's no labor distribution is reported for this check dates. Why? Because we haven't run anything in this time. But if I change the dates, let's say from, let's use 2017. 12/17, and notice it got rid of the custom begin dates as I did that. So I'm going to run it for this period. Let me see here. Oh, it's 4/27, so 4/19. Yeah, that counts as a year's period. And so I run the report, and we wait again, and we see what it brings up. So that's another little thing is that sometimes they'll ask you for periods where that period may not have finished yet. So you can just go ahead and say, now, here we see the 1099s right at the top, and then we have the W-2s following it. You can see that. Let me zoom in. You'll see that it shows the tax form on the employees, and this shows everything they earned in that period. And so we have the 1099 NEC. Now it's coming on the same page. I do have options where I can actually run it again. Not that I'm going to run it right now, but I can have it show page breaks after totals, right? So that way the 1099s will show up on a separate page. So you can do this kind of editing. And again, this is for reports that are already in the system, is you can do these kind of things, right? And if you ever have any questions about how to do these kind of things for a particular report or what a particular report will do, you can contact us. I mean, I'm not going to go over all the different reports that we have available in here. There's quite a few. But these are different, showing you as an example what you can do with the report. And also, I showed it's in Save Company Reports. As I mentioned to everybody when I'm doing a specific training one-to-one, my reports is also here. What is the difference? Well, I'll go up here and I'll show you. Save Company Reports. Everybody who has access to this company is able to see these reports. My reports is specific to the user. So I am the only one that will see these, right? So when you go there, it just may be blank because you haven't saved any yet. And then, of course, my completed reports is where everything that you've run for the last 3 months is. Now, that's great. So what happens when we don't have a report that meets your needs? Well, we can build it. We have the technology, as they used to say in the $6 million man. We have two different kinds of reports under Report Writer. There's the basic Report Writer, and there's the advanced. I'm sitting on the advanced Report Writer type, and I know this because over here it says basic Report Writer. That sounds kind of odd. Why is it saying basic when you're not in basic? Because it's saying what I would change it to if I click the button. So if I click the button, I'm now on basic. And so I'm going to go ahead and add a report, write a report, or actually I'm going to click on a one that's already here. Now, why am I doing that? I'm doing that because when you add a report, write a report, if it's basic, it asks you for information at the get-go, everything that's right here, what kind of report it is, all sorts of stuff, excuse me. And so it's asking for that before you start. And so you do have a variety of report types. The usual kind is the employee list because it pulls the employee information. There's also there's all sorts in here, but normally it would be employee list. And so here you would have your list of items that you can add in to the report. Like this one has last name and it has current bonus amount. So if I close the demographics field, and you'll see here why I'm closing the demographics is because you have demographics fields, which is like the demographics that you'll see in Dash, right? When you're going to the demographics page of the employees and you're entering that information, this is what it is. And then you have department fields, you have compliance, you have pay rates, and then you have payroll history down here. This is where you're going to find, if I open it, current year to date, current quarter to date, current month to date, and current. So if I clicked on the plus sign to expand it, then you can do your earnings, your deductions, right? So I click on the plus sign for earnings, and this is where the bonus is, right? You notice how it's bold? That's because it's already been selected. And so you can do things to run with this report. It requires a little bit more advanced thinking on it, like in terms of doing the formulas and so forth, but it allows you to see current and year-to-date information at the same time. I tend not to use this report, this report writer, the basic, because I find that the advanced is much nicer. So I'm going to change to advanced. And I'm just going to go and click on Add Report Writer Report. And here's what I mean. It's very visually pleasing. The other one I would say is like the command line interface. This one, it's already got the graphic user interface, which is much more convenient. And so I click on the plus for demographics here. I could add things like the employee ID, the last first name, and you'll see them over here, right? And you can change their position or change it back. The X will delete it, of course. You can even click on this little, I'm not sure if you can see it, but it looks like a Post-it note with a plus sign. You can add a static field, right? So let's say that you have a workers' comp, a workers' comp or 401k. It needs the plan number, right? So plan ID, and it's 50. And what it's going to do is it's going to show 50 all the way down because that's the plan ID for the 401k. This is what can be done when you have to add a block of information in the report that is not maintained in Dash, right? They're not going to know the 401k plan ID. So I'm going to hit submit, and then I move it to the top, and I'm going to preview it. And you'll see the plan ID, the employee ID, and the last first name right there. So I'll close. Now, I haven't saved the report, but if I'm going to save it, I click on the expand collapse arrows right here, and I would put in the employee, the ID for the report, and then the title, and then I would change it to Excel. So yes, these reports you can get in Excel. I hit save report. Now that's not everything that you can do here. Now, if you do the pay rates here, this is the information off of the employee. Same thing with the taxes, the deductions, everything that is set up on the employee. For payroll history, you click on this to expand it out, and then you can get the information like gross pay, gross amount, gross hours. And the thing with the gross pay or the gross amount, if you're running this for a series of check dates, one of those will actually give you check date by check date, whereas the other one will total it for the period you're running. So that one you want to just test it to see what it will do and then make the adjustment accordingly. Because you can always add and subtract things, and you'll see them in here under the selected fields. You can even change the name of the field right there. Right there, you can just do right like that. Right. And then this is where you'd have your individual earnings, your individual deductions, your individual taxes. These are the taxes the employee pays. If you have code groups, right, it will bring up the total for code groups. Like if you wanted to see a total for all AFLAC, you can do that rather than selecting the individual AFLAC deductions under the deductions, right? And this ER taxes is blank, but if I click on labor allocation, it fills, and then you can have a report that shows the employer tax contribution. So we have a wide variety of things that we can do here. And then you've got filter is the next section down here about at the bottom. And you can filter it. It automatically defaults to active employees. You can also have, now I don't see it here because we haven't selected anything yet. So let's see here. Right? So if I add check data, if I add information under the payroll history, then this section is enabled. And this is where you can sit here and do a date range of what dates you want and so forth. And then you can also do things like, you're looking only for employee ID equals, say, 26, and it'll only show you the 26. You have and or statements where you can tell it, or let's say employee ID equals 50. So if you only want to do that, obviously you're not going to be running this kind of report that specific, but you could filter by, say, you could sit there and say that you don't want it to include, if you selected this, you don't want it to include that value. So let's say it's going to be for total gross, and you say you don't want it to have zero value. So you'll eliminate anything that's a zero check, things like that. And the last thing down here at the bottom is sort. And this is just going to how you're going to sort it. So you want to have it sorted instead of by the employee ID, last, first, middle name, and it will do that sort. And it's that easy. And I do recommend going in and testing this yourself. And by the way, anything you do with a report writer, I do recommend that if you're going to test it, you want to test it, just start a new one and do it, because then you don't want to interfere with any report writers that are already there if you see any. But any kind of thing that you do here, testing it, seeing how it works, will not affect payroll. I do get questions a lot about, will this interrupt payroll? Will this delete information? Running a report right here, a report writer building it, will not do any of that. All it does is collect data that's already in the system. And so this is the kind of the things that you can do with a report writer. And I've used this to phenomenal advantage when it comes to certain things. You can see here what you can do with this one. Obviously, you can create that 401k interface that goes out into an Excel spreadsheet, convert that to CSV, and send it to your 401k provider or upload it into the system. All we need to know is which columns appear in what sequence, right? Do we put the plan ID like I put right here? Do we have, the employee ID, their name, things like that. The provider will tell you, and you can easily just put that in. And if there's any problems, of course, you contact us. Not that we wouldn't build these for you. There is a fee when we build them, but you have the ability to do this yourself and test the system, and also build reports that you may need and you don't find what you're looking for in our standard reports. And that's the beauty of this. And again, I do like this. It does not show both current and year-to-date at the same time. It only shows whatever value for which you've selected the check dates for, right? But it is a wonderful tool and very easy to use a report writer. I highly recommend this advanced one for most of what you might need.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We hope you found the information useful, and we are very, very pleased and thankful that you are part of our PayrollCentric family. Goodbye for now.